Beauford Anderson Mortar Squad, one-man army. The Medal of Honor citation for Beauford Anderson runs nearly 400 words, but it leaves out the most improbable detail. The weapon he used to hold off a battalion-sized Japanese assault wasn't his rifle or his grenades. It was a mortar he fired horizontally like a giant shotgun after his squad had been overrun. Anderson was a 22-year-old private first class from Eagle Point, Oregon, serving with the 96th Infantry Division on Okinawa. By any conventional measure, he should have been overrun, killed, or captured on the morning of April 13, 1945. What he did instead was turn a mortar, a weapon designed for indirect fire from behind friendly lines, into a personal defensive system, improvising tactics that would later be studied by infantry trainers for decades. You know, the overlooked lesson of Anderson's action isn't just about courage. It's about what happens when a soldier understands a weapon so thoroughly that he can use it in ways its designers never imagined. This is the story of a single mortar squad that, well, became a one-man army, and the tactical ingenuity that made it possible. By April of 1945, the 96th Infantry Division had been in combat for nearly 2 weeks on Okinawa. They were fighting across the southern half of the island, pushing into the Shuri Line, a network of fortified ridges where the Japanese 32nd Army had dug in with, honestly, fanatical determination. Anderson's mortar squad was attached to Company A of the 381st Infantry Regiment. Their job was to provide indirect fire support, basically lobbing 60mm shells into Japanese positions from behind the forward line of troops. It was dangerous work, but you know, it was supposed to be support work. On the morning of April 13th, the Japanese launched a sustained counterattack. Company A's forward positions were hit hard. The mortar squad, set up on a ridge, suddenly found that the front line had collapsed around them. Friendly infantry were falling back or had been killed. The enemy was closing in. Anderson's squad leader was wounded. 2 other squad members were killed. The 4th man was forced to carry the wounded leader to the rear. Anderson was left alone on the ridge with the mortar, a rifle, a pistol, and whatever ammunition he could gather. This is where the story, you know, really departs from conventional infantry doctrine. A mortar is designed to fire in a high arc. The round goes up, comes down, and then explodes. But to use it against targets at close range, within, say, 50 or 60 yards, you have to depress the tube almost to horizontal. That is definitely not how the training manual teaches you to do it. Anderson propped the mortar's base plate against a tree stump. He braced the tube with his hands. Then he began dropping rounds into the breach, aiming directly at the advancing Japanese soldiers as if, well, the mortar were an oversized rifle. The rounds, traveling on a flat trajectory, detonated on impact or ricocheted off the coral rock, sending fragments into the assault wave. He fired between 20 and 30 rounds in this manner. When the mortar ammunition ran out, he switched to his rifle. When the rifle ran dry, he used his pistol. When the pistol was empty, he threw rocks and coral fragments until he could retrieve a dead soldier's M1 carbine. What the citation doesn't fully capture is the noise. A 60mm mortar fired at low angle is not a subtle weapon. The blast from the tube, the explosion of the round, the fragmentation shattering against coral, it created a sensory environment that was itself a form of defense, disorienting the attackers and buying precious seconds. The counterattack lasted nearly 2 hours. By the time Company A reorganized and pushed back to the ridge, they found Anderson still fighting, his position surrounded by over 100 Japanese dead. He was exhausted, low on ammunition, and apparently still using rocks. The broader lesson here is about the fragility of doctrine in contact. The Army trained mortar squads to operate as a team, protected by infantry, firing from behind the line. When that structure collapsed, Anderson didn't try to fall back to the manual. He used the equipment he had, in the only way that would work, and improvised his way through a situation that should have been unsurvivable. Beauford Anderson received the Medal of Honor from President Harry Truman in 1946. He returned to Oregon, worked for the Bureau of Land Management, and, he rarely spoke about the morning he turned a mortar into a shotgun. His story matters today because it challenges how we think about individual heroism. The popular image is the soldier with a rifle, standing his ground. Anderson's stand was different. It was technical, improvisational, and deeply pragmatic. He won because he refused to let the weapon define the terms of the fight. In an era of increasingly complex weapon systems, Anderson's action is a reminder that the most effective soldier is often the one who understands his equipment so well that he can reinvent it under fire. Subscribe to War Machiner and share this if you value history that goes deeper.